Good morning, respected Swanika sir, Dr. Kapoor sir, ND Soni sir, and Malhotra sir. Our today's topic is important not only for us as doctors, पर शायरों के लिए भी ये शायरी का एक बहुत अच्छा विषय रहा है, दर्द. और जैसा कि फैज़ अहमद फैज़ ने अपने लिए हम सब के लिए बोला कि कब ठहरेगा दर्द दिल, कब रात बसर होगी, कब ठहरेगा दर्द दिल, कब रात बसर होगी, सुनते थे कि वो आएंगे और सहर होगी. तो उनको जवाब दिया जानिसार अख्तर साहब ने, अब ये भी नहीं ठीक कि हर दर्द मिटा दिया जाए, अब ये भी नहीं ठीक कि हर दर्द मिटा दिया जाए, कुछ दर्द कलेजे से लगाने के लिए होते हैं. So to master the basics of academic brilliance in the series of postgraduate combined rounds on different fundamental topics, today's PGCR is on approach to pain. I'd like to invite Chairpersons Dr. Hemant Malhotra sir, the Director SICC and HOD Medical Oncology. Dr. Avnish Bhardwaj will join us in a minute, and he's PhD Anesthesia, and Dr. Sudha Sarna, PhD Palliative Medicine. I'd like to mention that the next PGCR will be on communication, and I'd like to extend my invitation to all the faculties and the residents to attend that PGCR on communication. That will be a very good, and it will be different from the league. And this communication PGCR will be moderated by Dr. Srishti. So now I'd like to invite the first presenter, Dr. Richa.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, respected teachers, seniors, and my dear colleagues. I, Dr. Richa Randhawa, second year PG resident from Department of Palliative Medicine, welcome you all in 5th PGCR on Approach to Pain. It will be covered in the following subheadings, that is, Introduction, Pain in Emergency, Perioperative Management of Pain, Non-Pharmacological and Pharmacological Management of Pain, Chronic pain and interventional pain management. A case. A 45-year-old male patient who is a known case of advanced renal cell carcinoma with anorectal fistula presented to the emergency department with the complaints of pain in anorectal region since 3 months. Now what next? Anyone? We will be discussing about this case in the end of the lecture. And I shall be discussing about introduction of pain. Pain resembles an iceberg phenomenon in which the tip of the iceberg is what the patient is going to complain about, that is the physical pain. Whereas the major submerged portion, that is the hidden part, is the psychological, social, emotional and spiritual component of pain, which needs to be managed when the patient is coming to us. What is your perception towards pain? Have you ever seen your loved ones suffering from pain? Well, according to me, pain is somewhat like a black box that only the sufferer inside it can understand what the experience is. According to John Milton, pain is a perfect misery, the worst of evils. According to International Association for the Study of Pain, defines pain as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with or resembling that associated with actual or potential tissue damage. Now, pain is a ubiquitous phenomenon. A clinician knows that the same set of circumstances is going to produce significant amount of pain in one patient, whereas little or none in one patient. As we can see in the image, a person is running on fire. He's having no amount of pain, whereas a pinprick sensation is having significant amount of pain in one patient. So pain is a very personal experience which is influenced by biological, psychological and social components. A person expresses pain through his own life experiences, and we as physicians need to respect those experiences. Pain and nociception, these are not solely the same, and pain is not solely due to activation of sensory neurons. Pain is an adaptive function, but that doesn't mean it will not have adverse effect on the well-being and psychological well-being of the person. Whenever a person is not able to communicate, that doesn't negate the presence of pain. Dame Cicely Saunders, who is a pioneer in palliative care, gave the concept of total pain as a suffering that encompasses all, that is physical, psychological, spiritual, and social struggles of a person. Physical, which is caused by any illness, treatment, and comorbid factors, and psychological, like anxiety and depression. Spiritual, loss of faith, anger with dieting, fear of unknown. Social, loss of role and social status, loss of job, and financial concerns, worries about future. Some terminologies related to pain. Allodynia, pain due to a stimulus that does not normally provoke pain. Analgesia, absence of pain in response to stimulation which would normally be painful. Hyperalgesia, increased pain from a stimulus that normally provokes pain. Hyperalgesia. Receptive pain can be somatic or visceral in origin. Somatic, which originates from musculoskeletal joint and is well localized. Osteoarthritis, skin incision, and trauma-induced pain. Visceral pain originates in nociceptors located in hollow organs and smooth muscles and is often referred. For example, dysmenorrhea, gastritis, appendicitis, and acute pancreatitis. Now, assessment of pain is based on three things. First, detailed history. Then second is assess the objective signs of the patient, like vocalization, facial expression, and body movements, and various tools. So first is sight. Where does the pain occur? Frequency. It is continuous or intermittent. If intermittent, then ask how long in a day? How often does it happen? Impact on activity. Does it affect your daily living? Are you able to sleep because of your pain? Medication history. What you're taking? What is the route? How often you are taking? Are there any side effects associated with it? Then detailed history based on OPQRST. First is onset. When did it start? That's the duration. Provocative and palliative factors. What makes the pain worst and what makes it better? Quality. What it is exactly like. Dull aching, sharp pain, burning, lancinating pain. Radiation. Does it spread anywhere? Severity. Mild, moderate, and severe based on numerical rating scale. Temporal factors. Does it come and go? Is it in any particular day of time? Rate pain scale. There are various tools. First is unidimensional tools, which are very simple and validated, like visual analog scale. It's a straight line starting from no pain and then to worst possible pain. One faces pain rating scale, which is for children greater than 2 years of age and adults. Numerical rating score. It is for adults as well as children greater than 4 years of age. 0 is 1 to 3 is mild. Then verbal scale. This is the tool which we are using in the Department of Pain and Palliative Medicine for assessment of pain. First, it includes social demographic details of the patient, then diagnosis, presenting complaints, then pain history based on OPQRST, numerical rating score, as well as one Baker-Phase pain scale is used. Then in the scale diagram adjacent to it, we have the site of pain, any other symptoms associated with it, then Edmonton symptoms. Then general examination of the patient, any relative, useful investigation we have to note it down. Then previous treatment like surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation. Then family history, social issues, and current medication which the patient is taking. Now I would like to invite Dr. Tushtika Vyas, first year PG resident from Department of Physiology, to talk about pathophysiology of pain. Kindly take over the mic.
Dr. Richa Randhawa. A very good morning to all the dignitaries, respected faculties, seniors, and my colleague. Moving on with the topic, now we discuss the pathophysiology of pain. To understand the pathophysiology of pain, we have 4 processes, starting from when the stimuli reaches the skin. There is transduction of the signals. Starting from when a stimulus like pain reaches the skin, there is transduction of signals via the nociceptors. Now these signals are carried to the dorsal root ganglion of the spinal cord, which after crossing contralaterally are transmitted further to the brain. Brain perceives the pain, and then finally there is modulation of pain in the descending pathway. Pain receptors. The receptors which mediate pain are called nociceptors. Two types of nerve fibers carries pain. A delta myelinated fibers, which are responsible for fast type of pain, and C unmyelinated nerve fibers responsible for slow type of pain. Pain receptors are activated by three noxious stimuli: mechanical, like excessive pressure, like pulling of the hair or even a childbirth; thermal, when the temperature rises. Chemically, there are endogenous and exogenous factors. Exogenous factors like chemicals which is released due to mast cell activation, and endogenous factors like mast cell activation factors, and exogenous like hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, etc. Pain pathways.
What are NMDA receptors?
Now coming to pain pathways, at the arrival of stimulus, there is activation of mast cell which releases substances like bradykinins, histamines and prostaglandins, activating the sensory neurons. Now these neurons are carried to the dorsal root ganglion of the spinal cord. Here, after crossing contralaterally, they exit via the anterior commissure and then ascends via the brainstem, midbrain, thalamus to the somatosensory cortex. Now here, the descending pathway starts, which projections from the cortex and limbic systems, projections from the hypothalamus comes to the periaqueductal gray, then into the locus ceruleus. Various reticular formation occurs, and finally in the spinal ganglion, efferents carrying the motor neurons are exiting. Now, how we localize pain area? To understand this, there is a concept of dermatome and referred pain. Dermatome is an area of skin which is supplied by single spinal nerve, whereas referred pain is a pain perceived at a site adjacent to or at a distance from site of an injury's origin. The most common example is cardiac pain, which is experienced on the left thoracic region and the left arm. Also, the example of acute cholelithiasis, in which the pain is referred to the area which is right shoulder tip or right shoulder or right suprascapular region. And lastly, in the case of appendicitis, there is pain in the right chondral region. Now, why dermatomes are important? Can anyone tell me that what is this patient's presentation? This is a typical presentation of herpes. It's a relapse case of shingles in adulthood where there is a painful rash which is localized in this area. The pain will be localized in this area, but due to dermatome distribution, the pain can be anywhere according to the dermatomes. It can be over the T9 and T10 areas because of the dermatome distribution. Now coming to a most important theory, which is the gate control theory. Before asking this, I would like to ask our revered audience that what is your immediate response when there is a painful stimuli like a prick, pain abdomen, or even a blow on a head? Withdrawal. So our first response will be either we reflexly remove our hand or try to put pressure on it. So that works on the gate control theory, which is given by Melzack and Wall in 1965. It is a mechanism in the spinal cord in which pain signals can be processed to accentuate the possible perceived pain or attenuate it at the spinal cord level. Now what happens when a painful stimuli reaches via the A delta and C fibers, it reaches the spinal cord and then it is perceived by the brain. But when we try and put pressure on it, so we are closing the gate. So there is interferons which comes into play, which has an inhibitory effect. So the secondary neuron will not be transferred to the brain and the pain is not perceived. So the segmental suppression, like simply rubbing or massaging the area, giving a hot or a cold compression, acupuncture or transcutaneous electric nerve stimulation. Also via the supraspinal pain suppression system, descending serotogenic and opioid inhibitory system, descending purinergic inhibitory system and adrenergic inhibitory system. Now I would like to invite Dr. Nikhil Parikh, JR3 from the Department of Emergency Medicine to discuss the approach to acute pain in emergency department.
Good morning. Today we'll discuss about how to approach acute pain in emergency department. So about 70% of the patients presenting in ER have complaints of some sorts of pain. The most common causes traumatic, that is 20 to 40%. Etiology is road traffic accident, assault or burns. And the next three common pain which we face in our ER are chest pain, abdominal pain and headache. And followed by there are other causes which are non-traumatic, musculoskeletal and sometimes psychological causes are also there. So initial assessment of patient is done in ER with a numeric rating scale for pain. So we'll ask the patient by showing the pain on the scale of 0 to 10, what is your score for the pain? And about 44% of the patients present in ER with complaints of 7 to 10 score, that is severe pain, and the initial assessment is done within the 15 minutes of the arrival, and the re-evaluation is done within the 15 minutes of providing an analgesia to the patient. So acute pain, we'll discuss the three common presentations. We'll first do the primary survey, that is airway, breathing, circulation, disability and management. We'll manage that, and then after obtaining the vitals and monitoring cardiac rhythm, we'll provide supplement oxygen if it is required, and we'll obtain IV access and provide adequate analgesia to the patient before taking any history, and then after taking detailed history and doing the physical examination, we'll decide which investigations we need to proceed further. The most common causes of pains can be appreciated by the site of location of the pain. The most common causes of right-sided chest pain, most commonly the differentials are pulmonary embolism, COPD and pneumonia. And for left-sided chest pain, it is divided into heart, digestive issues, lung issues, musculoskeletal issues, and sometimes other medical conditions such as we have already discussed about herpes zoster. Life-threatening causes for chest pain are acute coronary syndrome, tension pneumothorax, cardiac tamponade, aortic dissection, pulmonary embolism, and esophageal rupture. Now we'll discuss about the abdominal pain. So basically abdomens are divided into 4 quadrants and 9 regions, and we can make a list of differential diagnoses according to the regions in which the pain is sensed by the patient, and the list of most life-threatening causes for acute abdomen are ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm, aortic dissection, myocardial infarction can be present as epigastric pain, mechanical bowel obstruction, acute pancreatitis, acute cholangitis, and sometimes ruptured ectopic pregnancy. Types of headache. The 3 common non-traumatic headache which we face in our ER are either tension headache, migraine headache, or cluster headache. So tension headache is a band-like feel and which is dull in aching, and for migraine it is unilateral most of the time, which is throbbing pain, and for cluster headache it is a stabbing and burning sensation, and which is recurrent. Even we can have multiple episodes in a day of for cluster headache. The list of life-threatening causes for headache are CNS pathology-related headaches such as subarachnoid hemorrhage or any stroke or intracranial bleed is there. Hypertensive emergency, internal carotid artery dissection can cause sharp pain, and non-life-threatening conditions requiring urgent attention is acute angle closure glaucoma, because it is a vision-threatening condition. We also faces sometimes low back pain, which are the most common causes for low back pain are either traumatic or degenerative conditions in elderly population, or sometimes poor sitting posture or frequent bending forward. Work-related, occupation-related pain can also present as a lower back pain. A vision for 2025 at Mahatma Gandhi Hospital is a pain-free ER, and for that we are aiming for early and adequate analgesia to the patients presenting in ER. We are providing nerve blocks on arrival in trauma patients, and our emphasis is also on research in pain management and research regional blocks in ER. Now I would like to invite Dr. Nitesh Dahiya from Department of Anesthesia for perioperative pain management.
Thank you, Dr. Nikhil. Good morning, respected teachers and my dear colleagues. Now we shall be talking about the perioperative pain management. As we know, when the patient experiences pain, anxiety and restlessness accompanies it. In these scenarios, non-pharmacological modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness-related stress-reducing therapies, along with the anxiolytics like benzodiazepines are given, and medications like opioids and ketamine are administered as analgesics preoperatively. In grievous pain conditions like chest traumas, patient can have breathlessness and shallow breathing, which can lead to hypoventilation and atelectasis. In conditions like these, blocks like erector spinae block, intercostal block, paravertebral block, and interpleural block are given to subside pain so that patient can breathe normally. Recently introduced advanced blocks like pericapsular nerve group blocks are routinely performed under USG guidance to cope up pain prior to positioning the patient for neuraxial anesthesia. Now may I ask the audience that if a patient is having surgery under general anesthesia, how can you assess the intraoperative pain?
Very good. One sign is tachycardia. Anything else?
Very well.
Unexplained tachycardia. What else?
Very well, thank you. So there are no specific tests to assess the intraoperative pain under general anesthesia, but we can assess it by some physiological measures such as increase in blood pressure or increase in heart rate only after ruling out the other potential causes for it like blood loss, hypothermia, uncontrolled hypertension, and conditions like pheochromocytoma. And if there is surgery conducted under spinal or combined spinal epidural anesthesia, apart from the NRS and visual analog scale, as we already discussed, we could assess pain by the behavioral measures like face movements, muscle tension, body movements, increased respiratory rate.
Now all this happens because of this happen in cases where you have cesarean section in the general anesthesia. So best way to prevent this awareness and maintain adequate depth of anesthesia is monitoring of depth of anesthesia, and that is done with the help of BIS monitoring, bispectral index monitoring, and this kind of monitoring is available in our department in some of the ORs.
Thank you, sir. Now for effective perioperative and post-operative pain management, widely acceptable approach advocated is pharmacotherapy, in which we give 2 or more than 2 analgesics, each with a lower dose than if used alone, can provide additive and synergistic effects with lesser side effect, which broadly termed as the multimodal analgesia. The commonly used drugs are paracetamol, NSAIDs, NMDA antagonists like ketamines, alpha-2 agonists like dexmedetomidine, opioids, etc. As the use of ultrasound imaging has revolutionized the peripheral nerve blocks with more safety, accuracy, and efficiency, various peripheral nerve blocks for numerous upper limb, lower limb, and abdominal surgeries are performed routinely in our institute. Moving on to epidural analgesia, which is done by placing an epidural catheter in the epidural space, which is a space between the ligamentum flavum and dura mater, which consists of emerging nerve roots, veins, and fats. It's routinely performed in thoracic and lumbar segments for major surgeries like thoracotomy, esophagectomy, gastrectomy, hysterectomy, etc., in conjunction with general anesthesia or spinal anesthesia. It is very helpful in several painful conditions like labor, in which epidural block covers sensory loss from the T10 to S5 dermatome, which is responsible for the visceral and somatic pain in the first and second stage of labor. Then there are modalities like patient-controlled analgesia, where the patient is enabled to self-administer a preset amount of analgesic drug as and when required. It is essentially an infusion pump or a portable machine with a push button which delivers a drug when triggered. It's commonly used for intravenous, epidural, subcutaneous, and intradermal routes and are commonly indicated for the post-operative analgesia, but it can also be used to maintain pain relief once the pain control is achieved, like in the post-operative patients of total hip replacement, total knee replacement, acute pancreatitis, etc. Then we have this Dynaplast or surgical tape look-alike thing, but it is much more than that. It is a transdermal patch which is simple to use as it delivers drugs into the bloodstream via the skin. The patch will continue to administer its active pharmaceutical ingredients until either they are fully absorbed or the patch is removed. It maintains the therapeutic level for 1 to 7 days, depending upon which type of transdermal patch is used. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ruqayya Ali from the PMR department to further enlighten us on the non-pharmacological pain management. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nitesh. Good morning, respected dignitaries, faculty members, seniors, and my dear colleagues. Management of pain is done by non-pharmacological, pharmacological and interventional pain management. I'll be discussing about the non-pharmacological management of pain. Role of the PMR physician is to diagnose, manage and treat pain comprehensively, predominantly using different medication, interventional pain management procedure, lifestyle modification in the form of ergonomics and various therapies to help patient recover their functional well-being and to restore to the healthy and functional life. We also prescribe various medication which will be covered by my colleagues. We have biomechanical and posture correction. Bio means body and mechanics means movement. So it is movement of the body. Biomechanical correction leads to the healthy posture. Biomechanics related pain refers to the pain caused as a direct result of faulty body movements. Due to the poor biomechanics, involved joints, muscles, nerve undergo forces that are not familiar with causing irritation and the pain. These are the pictures of one of our patient in which we have done posture assessment on the posture grid and worked accordingly. The 4 key aspects to resolving biomechanical related pain and niggles for good is first to identify the underlying cause, then modify, retain and reload. Goal of the PMR physician is to restore functionality in the patient's living with injuries, diseases and disorder. This is our gait lab where we do biomechanical and gait assessment. Gait correction. Gait is a complex series of the movements involving multiple joints, muscles and neurological control. Gait abnormalities can result from various factors including injury, musculoskeletal condition, neurological disorders or biomechanical issues. It involves a comprehensive patient assessment to identify the specific issue. Gait training emphasizes refined walking mechanics. These are the videos of the one of the famous IPL player Atharva Tade who came to us. He plays for Kings 11 Punjab. He came to us with the knee pain, right knee pain, and we did the gait assessment in the form of walking and running. We placed various pointers in various bony prominences of the body and we did assessment of the walking in all the 4 directions, and this is the running assessment of the patient. And after doing the assessment we got these are the 2 graphs in the down on the left side. We found that actually it was ankle which lead to the pain in the knee. Ankle was overpronated which was causing pain in the knee. So it is not only the part where the pain, we have to assess not that part only, we have to assess the whole body of the patient to find where the actual cause lies. Braces for pain, they are used for support, stability and alignment to the affected joints and the body parts. They also help in maintaining pain and promote healing. Common braces which are used for the pain are ankle, knee, shoulder, back, wrist braces. This is the AFO, ankle foot orthosis, and this is the dorsal lumbar shield type AP shunt type orthosis which we have used for the back. We also have virtual reality for the treatment of pain. It is a computer generated simulation of the environment or experience that can be interacted with a seemingly real or physical way. The immersive and distractive nature of the virtual reality can help divert a person's attention away from the pain and reduce anxiety and improve overall well-being. Ways in which virtual reality can be used for control of pain is distraction and immersion, engagement, pain rehabilitation and therapy for chronic pain management, pain perception modulation, and integration with cognitive behavior therapy. Transcutaneous spinal cord stimulation, it is another modality. It is a non-invasive neuromodulation technique that involves applying electrical stimulation to the skin surface overlining the spinal cord. The goal is to modulate neural activity and provide therapeutic benefits for various conditions including chronic pain, spinal cord injuries and neurological disorders. We also have a supervised physiotherapy and occupational therapy in our department who use various modalities on our prescription by our prescription in the form of hot and cold therapy, wax bath, ultrasound therapy, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, intrapharyngeal therapy, neuromuscular electrical stimulation, and extracorporeal shockwave therapy. Now, I will like to invite Dr. Ravi Godara, second year junior resident from the Department of General Medicine, to speak upon pharmacological management of pain. Thank you.
Good morning. Today I will be talking about pharmacological management of the pain. So, before we start, what are the different sites at which pain medication act? This is a cross-section image of spinal cord showing dorsal and ventral horn and nerve fibers. As my colleague from physiology has already discussed pain pathway, it is important to understand that each drug acts on a particular site in this pathway and block pain. NSAID act on nerve ending. Local anesthesia has a broad action and act on primary afferent nerve, dorsal root ganglion, descending non-adrenergic and serotonergic fibers. Opioid act on descending fibers and dorsal horn. The management of the pain is commonly done by two classes of drugs in which are opioid and non-opioid. Apart from that, adjuvant drug can be added to enhance the response of these medication. In non-opioid analgesic, commonly used drugs are NSAIDs like diclofenac, ibuprofen, pneumocylide. So the NSAID act by inhibition of cyclooxygenase 1 and 2 enzyme, and paracetamol has central analgesic effect through which it increases the pain threshold. The opioid class of drugs are divided into two: weak opioid and strong opioid. Tramadol and tapentadol are commonly used weak opioid. These drugs are mu opioid receptor agonist drug and also inhibit serotonin and noradrenaline reuptake. In strong opioid, we have morphine, fentanyl, buprenorphine. They are mu opioid receptor agonist and they are useful in managing severe intractable pain, not control on other analgesic as discussed. There are some adjuvant drugs that can be added to other analgesic and to enhance their action and may other symptoms associate, like antidepressant like amitriptyline, anticonvulsant like pregabalin, gabapentin, phenytoin are helpful in managing neuropathic pain. Steroid dexamethasone for metastatic bone pain, and sedative are used for associated anxiety and insomnia. And now I would like to invite Dr. Anukriti for further discussion on cancer pain management and palliation.
Is a pain of long-standing duration of more than 3 months.
No, but it is important.
Yes.
One should be very, very careful when using national emblems or logos for anything. One has to be very careful. It may amount
It
to...
is associated with our pride.
Yes.
It may amount to disrespect
So
also.
whenever we present about India, we should present something good for India. Bharatvarsh ke liye present.
Yes.
Yes. Satyamev Jayate.
Chronic pain can be cancer pain, musculoskeletal pains, neuropathic pain, visceral or soft tissue pain, and phantom pain. In cancer pain, the most fearsome symptom is pain, and in advanced malignancies, incidence of cancer pain is 70 to 80%. Despite the availability of guidelines and opioids, chronic pain remains undertreated. So the principles of chronic pain management aim is to always prompt treatment of pain and to prevent its recurrence, to achieve realistic goals of pain relief. It has to be by the mouth, easy and effective, and can be taken by the patient at home, by the clock. Pain management should be done continuously and should not be on as required basis. By the ladder, I'll be discussing in detail the pain medication ladder. By the individual, an adjuvant drug should be prescribed when required. So what is the World Health Organization pain medication ladder? The pain ladder or the analgesic ladder was created by the World Health Organization as a guideline for the use of drugs in the management of pain. The general principle is to start with the first step drugs and then climb the ladder if the pain is still present. The ladder has 4 steps. Guidelines recommend administration of drugs when pain occurs starting from non-opioid drugs without adjuvants such as NSAIDs. If pain persists on step 1 drug, a weak opioid like tramadol or tapentadol is added to the existing non-opioid analgesic. If the pain is still present and the treatment is insufficient for the patient, a weak opioid is replaced by a strong opioid such as morphine, fentanyl or buprenorphine. Step 4 of the ladder is a new proposed step which comprises of nerve block techniques, neurolytic blocks, epidurals, radiofrequency ablations. It is helpful in managing pain that is refractory and is not being managed by the first 3 steps of the ladder. So modalities in pain management can be landmark guided, where with the knowledge of anatomical landmarks, we can give the block Ultrasound guided, with under ultrasonographic guidance, we can locate the site and give the block. And fluoroscopic guided under guidance of C-arm. So nerve block, neurolysis and radiofrequency ablations are the three modalities through which we can give blocks. So nerve block, these are procedures that can help prevent or manage many different types of pain by blocking pain from specific nerves. This is done by giving local anesthetics at the site. Neurolysis, it is the application of chemical agents that can be absolute alcohol or 6% phenol to a nerve in order to cause temporary degeneration of targeted nerve fibers that results in interruption on transmission of pain signals. And radiofrequency ablation, that can be conventional and cooled RF. It is a minimally invasive technique that uses radio waves to create a current that heats a small area of nerve. The heat destroys that area of nerve, stopping it from sending pain signals. The effects of these three modalities are varied. Nerve blocks are effective from few hours to days, neurolysis from few days to weeks, and RFAs from few months to up to 2 years. So let's discuss a hypothetical case. A patient with a chronic pain, currently on diclofenac tablet BD, that is NSAIDs, along with tablet morphine, 30 milligram 4 hourly, the highest dose, which is a strong opioid, and all other adjuvants, still complains of pain and has only 30% of relief with ongoing management. What can we do further to relieve pain for the patient? So the pain management interventions. I will be discussing some pain management interventions done in different types of pain. All images being shown here have been taken from the procedure done by our department at Mahatma Gandhi Hospital. So first, the celiac plexus block, which is helpful in patients who are having pain due to abdominal malignancies or in cases of chronic pancreatitis. The patient is placed in a prone position. The patient is placed in a prone position and the needle is inserted from the back. The needle goes in front of the vertebrae via a transaortic approach, and once we have reached the site, we'll give a dye and confirm that we are at the right place. After the spread of dye, it guides us, and then we give injections, which is either, if you are doing neurolysis, it will be absolute alcohol or a local anesthetic. Superior hypogastric plexus block, which is helpful in pelvic and perineal pains. So it is helpful in pelvic and perineal pains. Again, patient is placed in a prone position. Needle is inserted from behind. So we can see here, this is the position of the needle. And at L5 level, we'll give this injection. First, dye is injected. Once we are confirmed, we'll give the block with absolute alcohol. Or if you are doing a neural block, then local anesthetic. Lumbar sympathectomy, helpful in phantom pains or sympathetic mediated pains. This particular patient that we gave a block in was a patient...
Pain of lower limb.
Lower limb, yes. Sorry. So this particular patient was a case of Ewing sarcoma and he had amputation of lower limb. Patient was, the pain was not relieved with morphine, 30 milligrams 4 hourly, and hence he was planned for lumbar sympathectomy. L5 nerve root block, helpful in cases of patients suffering from sciatica, which is a low back pain radiating to the leg. And the point of origin is of pain is identified, and if here we can see this is again given at L5 level. The dye was injected and then the nerve root was identified and block given. S1 nerve root block also helpful in cases of sciatica. It is given at the level of S1 foramen. This is the needle we can see here, and then after injection of dye and confirmation of site, we'll give the block. Ganglion impar plexus block, helpful in cases of coccydynia and rectal pain, given at the needle is directed towards the sacrococcygeal junction, and after that, once we have identified, the dye is injected and block given. There are also some complex pain management interventions like stellate ganglion block, helpful in complex regional pain syndrome. Cervical epidural, helpful in neck pain with radiculopathies, and RF ablation of Gasserian ganglion. So in a patient with trigeminal neuralgia, RF ablation of Gasserian ganglion was done. The needle is inserted from the cheek, that is 2 centimeters lateral from the angle of mouth in the lines of the pupil. And we reach the foramen oval. Once we have reached, radio frequency ablation is done. Other modalities. There are other modalities which are not directed towards pain management but might help along with other management of pain. Trigger point injections. They help in relieving myofascial pains. Lymphedema management. Swelling of an arm or a leg due to blockage of lymphatics or due to surgery when lymph nodes are removed. This can also result in pain, and hence lymphedema management is also important. Ascitic tap in patients with ascitic fluid, that can also cause pain, and pleural tap in cases of pleural effusion. There are also certain alternate pain alleviating therapies such as music therapy, acupressure, acupuncture, aromatherapy, which are known to have effects on alleviating pain along with other pharmacological management, and biofeedback mechanism, which is a type of mind-body technique that used to control some of the body's function such as heart rate, blood pressure, etc. I would now like to request Dr. Nipul Lamba, sir, Associate Professor from the Department of Pain and Palliative Medicine, to kindly discuss the case and summarize the presentation.
Good morning to all respected faculty members. We have learned a lot about pain today in 1 hour. Pain is a very broad field actually. It cannot be summarized in such a short time, but we have tried ki jitna ho sake, we have tried to summarize it, to collect it. Actually, why we are studying pain? किसी ने सोचा कि क्या ज़रूरत पड़ी? We need to study pain. Pain मेरे दिल के बहुत करीब है. I love pain actually. Why we are studying pain? Pain is the basis जिसके ऊपर evolution of medical science हुआ. अगर दर्द ही ना होता तो medical science ही शायद evolve नहीं होती. That's why we are studying pain. And for our patients, हमारे पेशेंट्स को क्या चाहिए? दर्द में आराम. If they got pain relief, they get everything. Pain now it is called fifth vital sign. 4 vital sign तो हमने पढ़े ही हमेशा. Now एक approach to pain के बारे में हम बात करते हैं. जैसे पेशेंट हमारा इमरजेंसी में आया था, the patient came to emergency. सारा असेसमेंट अकॉर्डिंग टू इमरजेंसी मेडिसिन हमने किया उसका. हमने उसकी हिस्ट्री ली, OPQRS ली, हमने उसका फिजिकल साइको सोशल एग्जामिनेशन किया, उसके पेन स्कोर्स देखे कि भाई किस तरह का दर्द है, माइल्ड पेन है, मॉडरेट है, सिवियर है, कैसा दर्द है. और उसके बाद हमने देखा कि भाई ये अक्यूट पेन है या कई बार क्रॉनिक पेन भी आ जाता है इमरजेंसी में. तो अक्यूट पेन है तो मेडिकल मैनेजमेंट जो उसका अप्रोप्रिएट है हमें करना पड़ेगा. इट शुड बी इट्स अ गुड पेन. ये हमें बताएगा क्या कॉज है. अगर सर्जिकल मैनेजमेंट है तो सर्जिकल मैनेजमेंट भी करना पड़ेगा, यानी कि उसका अप्रोप्रिएट. अगर क्रॉनिक पेन है तो वो कैंसर का भी हो सकता है इमरजेंसी में, हमारे तो मरीज आते ही हैं. उसके अलावा मस्कुलोस्केलेटल पेन भी हो सकता है. तो उस केस के अंदर के लिए लोग लैडर एंड अकॉर्डिंग इंटरनेशनल पेन मैनेजमेंट. तो ये हमारा केस था जो हमने स्टार्टिंग में डिस्कस किया. एडवांस रीनल कार्सिनोमा द पेशेंट. दिस पर्टिकुलर पेशेंट केम इन इमरजेंसी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ आवर हॉस्पिटल. आई एग्जैक्टली रिमेंबर आई वाज ड्राइविंग माय कार व्हेन दिस पेशेंट सिस्टर कॉल केम. पूरी हिस्ट्री ली, ऑल द एनाल्जेसिक मेडिकेशंस वर गिवन इन इमरजेंसी. स्टिल पेशेंट हैड सिवियर पेन. इतना पेन द पेशेंट वाज बेडरिडन फॉर 3 months. वो उठ भी नहीं पा रहा था बेड से, बैठ भी नहीं पा रहा था.